And you read the question?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If I have the water right here, you won't be able to see it, right? Like on the floor?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
And also, if there's anything that you think is important that you want to add, obviously we can do that.
Yeah, I think your questions were actually really good. Very insightful.
Great. Okay, so we'll just start with the first question that I have, which is, what is your opinion on the conviction rates with regards to, are you ready?
Yes.
With regards to rape trials?
Mm-hmm. So I think the conviction rates in regards to rape are a reflection of rape culture in our country and just everywhere. It kind of makes sense that so few people are convicted, even though we know that 1 in 4 women have been sexually assaulted, because we tend not to believe victims as a society. We just don't take cases seriously, and so people don't go forward with the cases. Also, because they see that people aren't really getting a due process, and so it all sort of works in that direction.
Yeah. And what you just mentioned, rape culture now,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to like briefly describe what that is or explain rape culture.
Yeah. So rape culture is a culture in which sexism and different power dynamics exist and thrive, and that gives way to a society that allows rape to thrive. Or I just repeated myself tons. Yeah, so it allows rape to exist and to go unpunished. It allows sexism and racism to build on it. And so I didn't like that answer, but.
Okay, well, we can redo whatever.
I thought
Okay.
that was great.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
also thought it was great. So, having that in mind, what difficulties do you think victims have
Mm-hmm.
During a rape case or when trying to prove a rapist guilty?
Mm-hmm. So I think the fact that our justice system is set up so that rape victims need to prove their case, it's really faulty, and you don't see that in any other crime. So the burden of proof is really, it really relies on the victim, which it sets up the system to fail. So the system's really failing victims because they're the ones that need to prove that this happened to them and the way it happened to them. So it's really unjust.
Yeah, that's really interesting because just like thinking about it, like how do you prove that you've been raped? Like what I think I have a question here that says that do you think the lines are blurred when it comes to justifying or proving what rape actually is?
So we've created a system where the lines are blurred, but it shouldn't be the case. And we've created a system where we try to blame victims for what happened and we try to justify it in some way, though we don't necessarily do that with any other crime. We wouldn't speak about a victim who was murdered in a way that we do about a victim who was raped. Because of rape culture and because of how the criminal justice system is set up, I think the lines are blurred, but that shouldn't be the case.
And what are some, when rape victims go to case, or any rape situation, what are some of the common factors that occur in the situation? Is that question clear?
Could you
Yeah, so
elaborate?
I remember in your talk you were speaking about how a lot of the time someone is raped by a family member or someone that's close to them, or kind of on those in those situations, what are commonly seen attributes to rape situations?
Okay, I kind of get your question. So we know from several national surveys, and we know this happens in other places as well, that over 85% of rape victims know the person that hurt them. We know that about half of them report that they were in relationships with these people, romantic relationships, but a very, very overwhelming amount of rape victims knew the person that hurt them. So it could be a friend of a friend, a neighbor. So what we see in the media, that this myth of the stranger in the alleyway that rips off this girl's clothes is actually not accurate. A very, very small percentage of rapists are actually strangers to the person they're hurting. So that is a huge misconception. And so when you're going forward with a case, when a victim is going forward with a case, it just becomes so much more complicated to report someone that you know that is part of your circle, your social circle, someone that you may have a relationship with. It just becomes so much more complicated, and victims are also, that's another barrier they face. They're not believed. They're coming forward and saying, this person did this to me, and they are faced with questions like, but you wanted to be there, but you went out with him, but you had drinks with him. So that just adds to the barriers victims face.
Yes, so I think on that note, it would be good to ask, what is consent then?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so consent is the voluntary either, let me rephrase that. So consent is the voluntary action. No, how do I put this? I want to be like super clear. Yeah. And I'm missing a word. So consent can be demonstrated by actions or words that create a clear, that convey the clear message that this act is voluntary. In this case, the sexual act is voluntary. Is that okay?
I think we have to read it just because there was a car horn.
Yeah.
Oh, there was. You're right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm trying to find like the definition that I always like to use.
Oh, take your time.
Is there any way I could grab my phone and like, so I can like do it accurately, because I don't want to. Oh my God.
Recording?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. What is consent?
Consent is a voluntary and mutual decision to engage, in this case, in a sexual act. And it can be given by words or actions, as long as those words or actions create this clear permission that these two people or whoever is involved are really given their permission to engage in whatever it is that they're deciding to engage in.
So this is just not part, this is something I'm thinking of. So do you think that's why it is difficult in court to prove this? Because then it's like one person's word against the other.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And also in the definition of consent, at least in New York State, when rape is prosecuted, they will not prosecute someone who didn't try to fight back or who didn't say no. This is really a movement that recently started to also include in the definition of consent that silence or lack of resistance does not imply consent. That is a very, very new idea that is sparking in different states in the US. And so that's why it is really difficult for the criminal justice system to prosecute rape, because as of now, that really holistic definition of what we know consent really hasn't been adapted into criminal law as of now.
Okay, that's very interesting. So then, what is the definition, or like what is considered rape?
So rape is a penetration in either, and I can use like words, everything, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So let me start again. So rape, as defined in legal terms, and I am not an attorney, but it is defined as penetration of the vagina or the anus, however slight, that by another person, either by an organ of this person, by a part of his body, or by a foreign object into the victim without the victim's consent. That is how it's defined.
Are there any like myths when it comes to rape?
Yeah. So there are tons, and we can go on forever and ever, but there's a lot of myths surrounding like who can be raped. Even in the law not too long ago, it was written that only women could be raped. There was no space there for men to be raped. We spoke about this myth that most of the people that commit rape against another person are strangers, and that we know that's just not correct. We know that most victims know the person that hurt them. We believe that we have this heteronormative belief system where it's a woman against a man, and that's also, or a man against a woman, a man hurting a woman, and that's also not true. It happens within the LGBTQ community at way higher rates than it does between heterosexual couples. We know that boys get raped. Can we not put that in? Because should I, if you ever want me to do something again, just let me know and I can do that. Okay.
But so far it's been perfect. So now post-rape trial, post everything, what are some of the, or even just straight afterwards, what are the emotional damages that occur to the victim?
So some of the emotional damages that occur to a victim after they've been raped have a lot to do with trauma and trauma reactions. So we know that rape is a very, very traumatic experience for most people. I would say even all people. And so the victims are experiencing symptoms that are congruent with post-traumatic stress disorder, which is now a term that is widely known because we know that soldiers who are in combat come back home and they experience the symptoms, and these are the same symptoms that victims of rape are experiencing most of the time. So they are reliving the experiences through nightmares, through flashbacks, through intrusive thoughts. They have memory problems, depression, trouble concentrating. They have these sensory experiences that remind them of the victimization that occurred.
And then do you think this affects them later on in other relationships, or how they interact with other people?
I think let me rephrase the question. Yeah. So in regards to how victims can be affected by rape, in regards to other relationships that they'll have in the future, I think it can definitely vary by person. So I don't think I can make a generalized assumption about that. Yeah.
Real quick.
Yep.
I'm gonna adjust your microphone just a little because I'm just hearing like a little tiny bit of
Yeah.
clothes rubbing, like when I really pay attention to what I hear it. So I'm just gonna move this somewhere else. There we go.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Are you recording?
I am.
Okay. So, do you think all rape victims come forward? And then I'm going to extend onto that question. Do you think that all of rape victims admit to themselves that they've been raped? And If not, or if yes, like why?
So, sexual violence and rape, I think they're very, very difficult things to admit to oneself, to the same victim. Let me say that again. Sorry. So, I think most victims of rape or sexual violence in general, I think it can be very, very hard to come to terms with what's happened. One, because it was a very traumatic experience, and two, because we are told over and over and over again that this is either something that is normalized by society or something that shouldn't happen or something that you are at fault for. And we also have a lot of rape myths that contribute to this idea that it should be that rape is something that is extremely violent by someone who you've never encountered, and so when it happens in a bedroom with someone that you are comfortable with someone that was supposed to protect you, with someone you have a relationship with someone you are comfortable and someone you know, and it doesn't happen in the way that we see in the movies. There's no ripping of clothes, there's no violence, there's no hitting, there's no blood, there are no bruises afterwards. It's very, very difficult to say, hey, that was rape, that happened to me, not only because of the psychological implications, but also because it's just not portrayed in the media, so we don't necessarily identify our experiences with what happened.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now just moving forward to the topic about the woman who was raped in South Africa. Basically, the public reacted to this case by vilifying her, the rape victim. And do you think, and we've seen this like over and over again, even with the Brock Turner case, do you think that these kinds of highly high-profile rape cases deter other victims from coming forward?
Yeah. So when high-profile cases occur, and I don't know every single case, but several cases, for instance, the Cosby case, when as many as 40 plus women came forward and said that they were sexually assaulted by them, what we saw in New York City was an increase in reporting. Victims felt more comfortable going forward and reporting, because if these women have the courage and have the support to go forward and report a violent crime against someone who's so well known and so loved, then other women feel empowered to go forward as well. But the opposite also can happen when we see outcomes so discouraging, where it's almost impossible to deny that this person hurt these people, and still there are many, many people who support the perpetrator or the alleged perpetrator, and who blame the victim. That is definitely very discouraging, and I think it just shows how in our society we try to protect ourselves against it by pretending it doesn't happen, by blaming the victim, and in that sense we sort of are protecting ourselves from anything that could potentially happen. So I think high-profile cases bring light to the issue and have been very favorable, and have also been damaging in some regard.
Great, that's very insightful.
One little break while you get ready. Just have to put this down a little bit more.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry.
Oh.
This thing is such a pain. Okay, there we go. Sorry.
Do you want me to test it?
Yes, please. If you could just move your arms around maybe a little bit.
Sure. Can you hear me? Do you hear the noise?
That's much better. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, so, now I'm just going to ask you, in terms of the case that happened, Jacob Zuma, the accused rapist, was found innocent because of the following factors. He said that he and the victim were family friends.
Mhm.
He said that she had seduced him by wearing a Khanga, which is an African dress, and that she never said no.
Mhm.
So what do you think about all of these factors?
So, Jacob Zuma, right?
Yeah.
That's his name. So, in regards to the case against Jacob Zuma, I think from what we know, first of all, one of the factors in the trial and one of the reasons why he wasn't convicted of the crime is because he said she never said no. And the absence of how do I put this? Silence or lack of resistance in and of itself does not constitute consent, and I think we can all understand that and understand why that is so. Just because a person is not fighting back or actively saying no doesn't mean they're consenting to a sexual act, and we know that the brain is set up in a way that when we are in a very dangerous situation, our limbic system, which is the system in our brain that reacts in a situation where we need to basically survive, is turned on, and everything else is sort of like turned off. And so people react in very, very specific and different ways to a traumatic event, and that can be by either fleeing the situation, by fighting back the dangerous, whatever danger is going on, or by freezing. And you cannot choose how you react to a traumatic event. Your brain chooses it for you, and it does it automatically, and you have absolutely no choice in the matter. So a lot of people are freezers. If they see a truck coming their way, they will not move out of the way. They will not try to stop the truck. They will simply stay there and let it happen because our brains are set up that way. So in rape cases, we see people that aren't fighting back and that aren't necessarily saying no, but there's a very good reason for that. Another reason why he wasn't convicted was because of what she was wearing, which I find completely demoralizing because it is consistent with rape culture and this idea that women are to be blamed for what they're wearing and what they're drinking and how they're behaving, and that justifies violence against them. And well, we just know that that shouldn't be the case. We know that there are women who were wearing sweatpants and shorts and miniskirts, and we know there are people who are wearing burqas and are sexually victimized. So that's absolutely not a good reason to justify any victimization against anyone. What was the third reason?
That they were family friends.
Right. So in this case, again, we know that he wasn't convicted because they were family friends, which is funny because if the criminal justice system in South Africa knew anything about how rape occurs, they would know that most people who are victimized, particularly women, know the person that's hurting them over 80%. So it's just one more reason. It's just one more thing that let us know that we have a long way to go and the criminal justice system is not trauma informed. And
yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. Is there anything you want to add?
No, you did wonderful.
Anything you think we didn't touch on that you want to speak about?
No, but if there's anything you guys want me to redo, I'd be totally happy to do that.
In terms of sound, is there anything?
Yeah.
Not that I can recall right now, no. I think everything is either, if there was, like, you ended up saying it again,
Yeah.
maybe more eloquently already, so I think we should be good.
Yeah? Okay.
That's it. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. That was awesome. So helpful.